Hello, I'm Sarah. I am a third year PhD student and I have ADHD. So welcome back to my channel. It's absolutely wonderful to have you here. Today I'm going to be making a video that was requested by some of you, so thank you for that. And it's going to be on note-taking, specifically note-taking as a university or college student or grad student with ADHD, and some of the strategies that I've used, some things that hopefully will work for you to help you along with that. Now this video is going to be in 3 different parts, and I'm going to have the various timestamps for each part down below so you can skip ahead to whatever it is that actually interests you. Part 1 is going to be on taking notes in class for students with ADHD, especially undergraduate students or college students. The second part is going to be on taking notes on readings specifically, and especially for grad students, this might be helpful if you need to take a lot of notes on readings for various essays, projects, whatever that might be, as well as for upper year undergrad students. And then the third part of the video is going to be on how I organize my notes as a grad student with ADHD, and I'm especially going to focus on the application Obsidian because that's what I use for organizing my notes right now, and it's something that I absolutely love. So if you're interested in any of those, then this is the video for you, hopefully, and I hope that you find something helpful here. So first of all, taking notes for class if you have ADHD. If you have ADHD and you have some kind of proof of this, some kind of doctor's note, then you would be able to register probably with your university or college's accessibility center or accessible learning, whatever it's called, and they will potentially be able to help you out with various note-taking systems and tools and things like that. Also, they may be able to provide you with a note taker if that's something that you think you would benefit from. So if you're someone especially who learns better from listening instead of writing and you prefer to just sit and listen to lectures, then I would highly recommend looking into getting a note taker. So someone who will attend the classes, usually they'll get credit or get paid for it to just take notes for you, and you'll just get them from them instead of having to take them yourself. So that's not something that I ever felt like I wanted to do because I personally learn better from like the act of writing. That is a learning process for me, and that helps me to learn and remember things, but it might be super helpful for you to have a note taker. One thing that I would suggest doing if you can is to actually take notes by hand in class. So I know that taking notes by hand is like a dying practice. Everyone uses their computers nowadays and everything's electronic, but personally this is the method of note taking that I prefer and used all through undergrad and all through my graduate schools. And I like taking notes by hand because it eliminates the distractions of a laptop, and there have also been studies to show that people who take notes by hand actually remember things better. It's better for studying and learning. Also, when you're taking notes by hand, you're actually forced to write slower, so you're only going to write down things that are actually important instead of trying to write down everything, which is just pointless. Also, another thing that I really love about taking notes by hand is that it allows for doodling. So I know a lot of people think that doodling in a lecture or something like that means that you're not paying attention, but for me it's completely the opposite. I am someone who needs to be doing something with my hands if I'm listening to anything. If I'm not doing something with my hands, I find that my mind just wanders way too much. Not everyone can take notes by hand, which is fine. I totally understand that. But for me, it was also really helpful to take my notes by hand in class, and then when I was studying for an exam, I would then type up those notes. And that process of transferring them from handwritten to on the computer was part of my studying process, and that would help me remember things to rewrite them out like that. Some other tips for taking notes in class: if your prof is someone who likes to use slides and post them in advance, then it's helpful sometimes to print out those slides, bring them to class, and then actually just take notes on the slides. If you have a professor who doesn't use a lot of slides or doesn't post them, I know that it can be a bit trickier with note-taking. Last semester, the prof that I was TAing for barely used slides, and when he did, he never posted them. So a lot of students actually really struggled with that, and because they had come to kind of rely on slides to tell them what was important in a lecture. But instead, you have to practice just active listening in classes. So you really need to just pay attention to what's being emphasized. Make sure that you're paying attention to key terms, key dates, key people, important definitions, things like that. Make sure that you're just getting that important stuff down. And then anything extra, like examples the prof may give or something like that, just write down some like quick keywords that might hopefully jog your memory and help you kind of remember what was being discussed there. But don't try to write down everything. I know that some people try to do this in lectures, and it's just impossible. You can't possibly write down everything that's being said and still be like actively paying attention. For me, I also find that it's really helpful to use different colored pens, different colored highlighters, different colored anything when I am taking notes. So I am a really big fan of color coding, as you may know if you watched my ADHD and reading video, but I like to color code everything, including when I'm taking notes in class. So I use different colors for key terms, key definitions, key dates, anything like that. You might want to use a different colored pen to write down any questions that you may have or things that you're unsure about and you want to talk to the prof about later or discuss later. Or if you're taking a seminar kind of class, you might want to use different colored pens to write down points that you want to bring up, whatever thoughts you might have had that came up while others were speaking. I have to write down everything that I'm thinking personally, or else I'll just completely forget it. And if I find it very helpful to just use a color coding system to do that. Also, don't worry about making your notes look pretty. It's about function and not aesthetic, right? It doesn't matter what they look like. It just matters that they work for you. You can always type them up or make them look pretty later. So next, I want to talk about taking notes on readings. And this is something that I struggle with because I really have the issue of taking way too many notes on readings because I tend to think that everything is important and I feel like I need to write down absolutely everything or else I'm going to forget it, and this is a bad habit that I need to get out of. So just going through my process of taking notes on readings, first I annotate pretty much every single thing that I read. Every couple of pages or so I write down important points at the top, especially with heavy theoretical readings, and I briefly summarize key points in my own words. And I use different colored sticky notes and highlighters for different themes. I use various different symbols for my annotations. I also will use highlighter colors or abbreviations in the margins to identify the thesis of a text, the main arguments, things like methods, key theories that they use, so that when I'm looking it over, I can quickly identify, okay, this is where the thesis is, this is one of the examples that they use that I think is really helpful. And then when I finish reading an article or a chapter or whatever it is that I'm reading, I will go and type up these notes. And that's really easy for me to do after doing these annotations because everything is just right there and I don't have to go back and dig through the text for what it is I actually want to write down. Everything's just obvious on the page. So when I go to type out my notes on a reading, I will generally first summarize the key most important points of that article or chapter or whatever in my own words so that I'm getting a good overall sense right away of what this is about and what it's going to be useful for me. And then to make sure that I'm not taking too many notes, because this is really what I struggle with, I really try to think about what it is I am taking notes on this reading for, or what I did this reading for. So if it's for class, then I'm only going to take notes on things that are relevant to that class. If it's for a paper, I'm only going to take notes on whatever is most important to writing that paper. If it's, for my dissertation, then I might take notes on almost everything because I don't even know what I'm doing there. But in general, I really try to focus my notes and tailor them to what this is for. And then don't forget, you can always go back and look at the reading later. It's not going anywhere. And that's something that I often forget. I feel like I need to write down absolutely everything about the paper, article, whatever it is, because I don't really know why, because I forget that I can always go back and look at it later. I don't need to take down notes on absolutely everything. I just have a fear of forgetting, I think, and that's just, I think, an ADHD thing because I do have such a poor memory. I tend to forget what I read if I don't have notes on it. So one thing that I do to combat that is that if there is something that's interesting in the reading that isn't necessarily immediately useful to me, but that I might want to use in the future for something else, then I'll just note down, see page 60 for more on white supremacy or whatever it may be, just kind of an indication of this talks about that, and I can go back and look at it later instead of having to take notes on it right now. Okay, so moving on to how you can organize your notes, which is my favorite part. There are multiple note-taking apps out there, multiple programs, systems that you can use for taking notes that are so much better than just dumping your notes into Word documents. I do not use Word anymore at all for taking notes because I just think there are so many better systems and ways of keeping track of your notes. than just like a Word document. A lot of people really like OneNote. I don't really use that. I used to use Notion for taking all of my notes and organizing them and everything like that. But I have since switched to Obsidian, which has quickly become my favorite note-taking application ever. And I would be absolutely lost without it because it is basically my second brain. So I am in the process of moving all of my notes over to Obsidian right now because I love the interface. It makes a lot of sense for me because of the way you can make connections between readings and thoughts and things like that, and organize things by assigning tags to them. So I've opened up my Obsidian here, and as you can see, I currently have just 2 vaults here, one for my PhD research and one for a research project that I'm currently an assistant for. So I'll go into my PhD research vault, open that up, and this is what my notes currently look like in Obsidian graph view. I can see all of the various connections between things, between all of the notes that I have. If I zoom in, I can go and see like what these notes are, how they connect to various other notes. If I zoom out, I can hover over a particular note and see what it is and all of the various connections that it has. So this is what it looks like in that view. People with ADHD, we tend to be really good at making connections and seeing patterns that other people may not be able to, and I find that this is a really good application for that because of all of these connections that we can make, and being able to clearly visually see all those connections is really, really helpful. So over on the side here, I have all of these various different files and then sub-files within those. So when I go into my research, this is where I keep all of my research notes for dissertation research, but also other research that I do in a variety of different fields. And I have things organized according to the different subjects that they relate to. And the way I do things is that I make a different note for every different reading that I do. So I have a different note for all of the chapters that I've read of books, all of the books that I've read, all of the articles that I've read, everything like that. All of the notes that I've taken on these things, I keep in these different subsection folders. So for example, if I go into my religious studies folder here and I want to go look at Robert Orsi's History and Present. So I start here with a summary of the text. This is a summary that I've written myself, but sometimes I'll just pull summaries off of the internet. And then I have my theories and methods section here. I have connections to other texts here as well. I have chapter summaries that I've written for each of the chapters. And then I have all of my notes here as well. So if I scroll down through the notes, throughout this note-taking process, I've noted places where there are connections to other texts that I see. So, in something that he said in this part, I've found a connection to Anne Taves's text as well. So I can click on that and it'll take me to the note for her text. And then I can kind of see what that's about. I again have theories and methods, and again all of these different connections to things. And the way that you make connections to things is just by using double brackets, and then you can make the connection to that different note. So whenever I am taking notes in Obsidian and I'm reminded of another text, I will just make that connection to it in the notes. And then I also sometimes have just at the beginning of the note all of the kind of relations that I see. So then if I go into nature religions here and say go to this one, a reading by Sarah Pike, tags are another thing that are super helpful in Obsidian as well. And as you can see for this text in particular, I have a lot of different tags because it relates to a lot of different themes that I'm interested in that my research relates to. So environmentalism is relevant to my PhD research. And if I click on that tag, it'll give me along the side here everything else that I have tagged with environmentalism. Same for paganism. So I click on that and it'll give me all of the different texts, again, that I have tagged with paganism. And I can kind of click on any of those and it'll take me to the note there. I also keep a lot of different work and stuff relating to my dissertation in Obsidian. So if I go over here to dissertation, I have a section for papers and presentations. So this is where I keep various papers that I've written before. And yeah, I can just go down and it's got all of the different connections to the things that I've cited in here. So I find that that's just like helpful to, again, just like solidify and like make those connections. Then I also have a section for thoughts and ideas. So things that I am thinking about, things that I'm kind of brainstorming about. I keep that in Obsidian as well. And again, I'm making connections to different readings and stuff throughout this. And then I can connect different thoughts to one another as well. If I have like a paper or something, I can, and it's led to ideas for another paper. Again, I can constantly be making those connections as I'm working throughout Obsidian. I know I keep saying connection over and over again, but like it really is all about making those different connections. And that's like kind of the major thing. And so then when I go back to the graph view, this is the visual representation of all of the different connections that I've made. So this is like a paper that I wrote, and these are all the different sources and stuff that I've used for that. And again, when you have more connections to a certain note and more links to it, the bigger the little node will be. You can kind of see like what has the most connections to it. So for me, it's going to be like papers and stuff, but then I also have certain notes that have like a really big node for certain readings. Like this book by Rosie Braidotti has a lot of different connections that I found to it. And then you can also just see like visually how different kind of areas of research connect to one another as well in this. And you can kind of color coordinate things within this graph view in Obsidian however you want. So this is kind of how I have things laid out. Different folders for me are in different colors, but you can do it however works for you. And then you can also see tags as well if you want to. I don't usually keep tags turned on in the graph view because I have a lot of tags and I think it just gets like too crowded with tags on, but you can have that as well if you like. And it's just a really good way of visualizing all of the different relationships between your notes and stuff. And again, I think that Obsidian is really great for people with ADHD just because we are already so good at making those connections and seeing those patterns, and this is just a tool to strengthen that even more. Also, I really love building these graphs or mind maps, and I love seeing them expanding. So it's like there's a bit of a dopamine hit for me there, honestly, as I continue to make them grow, which is an incentive for taking more notes. So that's helpful too. I can honestly say that Obsidian really is my second brain now. I really wish that I'd known about it sooner. It would have been fantastic to have for studying for comprehensive exams. It also would have been great during my undergrad for just organizing and keeping track of all my notes and making different connections between things. I would have loved that. It would have been so helpful. So I'm really glad that I know about it now. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments or wherever. Also, if you have any tips of your own about taking notes or organizing notes or anything to do with that, please let me know because I am always looking for new tips and tricks there, and they also might be helpful to someone else. So thank you so much for watching. I am really hoping to be able to make more content like this, like videos on helping students with ADHD. So if there is anything else that you would like to see in this regard, please let me know and I will try to make a video like that. I'm definitely planning to make one on like essay writing and also how I use Notion as a grad student and as someone with ADHD. So yeah, those videos are hopefully going to be in the works soon. And yeah, thank you again, and you're wonderful, and have a great day.